add something quickly on criminal justice reform. Since 2020, we only got about 6 minutes, guys. Over 1,000 Black people have been killed by police. What reforms do you think, again, this is a big question, I know we can't answer it all, but what reforms do you think can change the game to make sure that cops are held accountable? And my question is, Donald Trump has talked about ending qualified immunity on the federal level. Do you support that, and why?
Well, a couple of things. One, I think there were competing bills in the United States Senate in I believe it was the summer of 2020. There were competing bills. There was the Tim Scott version of the legislation, and there was the and I forget I think it was the George Floyd policing bill, the Justice and Policing bill. That was the other one. The two bills were actually quite similar. The one major difference between the two pieces of legislation was qualified immunity.
That's a big difference.
In the Tim Scott's bill said you can't get rid of qualified immunity. I agree, you cannot get rid of qualified immunity. If you get rid of qualified immunity, I'm telling you today, you will have less police officers on the street. We have a ton of Black officers who serve in our police departments, Hispanic police officers, white police officers. When you get rid of qualified immunity, what happens is that police officer is not just subject criminally, but also subject financially. Hold on. So what officer is going to sign up when you deal with, at a minimum, any one officer has what?
Maybe a non-racist, maybe a non-racist one. Now, I just want to say,
so I don't think you should get rid of qualified immunity.
And let him respond. We only got 5 minutes. I would love to come back, Congressman, and have this conversation. I actually am the senior advisor for the George Floyd family. I was there when they wrote that, so I definitely want to talk about that in full detail.
Let me say, I was one of the lead organizers for activities that took place in Baton Rouge when Alton Sterling was killed by the police. I could tell you last year, in the last 2 years, over 1,000 Black people were strip searched by the Baton Rouge Police Department unjustly. That a federal judge ruled that the strip search policy of the Baton Rouge Police Department this year ruled that it was unconstitutional. And that I could tell you the names of countless other Black people who have been wronged by the police. If we end qualified immunity, we can hold them accountable. And what does that mean? That means that a cop who kills you is held accountable, not just by the insurance of the city, but by his personal stuff, that you can go after him personally when he kills you. You know what that's going to do? That's going to stop cops from killing people. Because if I can get your insurance, if I can get your house, if I can take your stuff when you kill us, you're going to think before you pull that trigger. And instead of protecting dirty cops, I'm not bad at good cops. I want a cop to go home to his family at night. I want you to go home to your family at night. But when you have a bad cop, when you have a bad apple, the end of the quote is they spoil the bunch. How do you get them out of the bunch? You ensure that the people who are harmed by them have all of the mechanisms and tools available to them to hold them accountable. And qualified immunity means that that cop is only held accountable by the city. Meaning, if I go out and shoot you, the city's liable for my decisions, not me. That means my wife, matter of fact, when a cop in Louisiana killed Ronald Green, when he thought that he was going to lose his job and his retirement, you know what he did? He took his car and ran it into a tree and killed himself so his wife could keep his insurance. So if I take away qualified immunity, I'd rather that bastard run into a tree than kill somebody else.
Woo. Okay. So
I think that you said a whole lot of things to say a bunch of nothing in some ways, because you bring up these policies. Question for you: do you support raising the federal minimum wage?
No, I don't. I never have.
So when we talk about the policies that he's supporting, those policies support the wealthy. He doesn't support making regular, everyday people be able to earn a higher living, because he believes that the wages are going to trickle down because the people with the majority of the money are going to pour some money into your cup all of a sudden. It never happened.
The prevailing wage, the prevailing market wage right now is significantly over the minimum wage. That's actually the real impact when you look at the minimum wage at any point in time over the last 50 years, that the market wage is always over the minimum wage. The minimum wage is a wage for entry-level employment. So if, my kids are 21, 17, 13, if they have to go work in a restaurant or work on a construction site or work in a hotel or doing something like that. And by the way, in construction, you make a lot more than the minimum wage. Just establish that. But if you're going to do that, they don't have the skill set to be able to demand a higher wage. That was the original purpose.
$7.25 an hour.
That was the original purpose of the minimum wage. And so I will tell you, in the economic data, really over 50 years now has proven that the minimum wage is not really indicative of what people are making every single day.
I don't want to go into the details of everything he said, but what I will say is that no American should be making $7.25 an hour anywhere in this country. And if you got a congressman who supports keeping the federal minimum wage at $7.25 an hour, I don't care if you're 15, 16, or 21, you can't afford to pay a light bill on working 40 hours a week at $7.25.
Well, let's be very clear. No American is making $7.25 an hour.
That's not true. I live in South Louisiana. I guarantee you I can find you somebody making $7.25 an hour.
Well, y'all heard that.
And talk to your cousins. There's a false narrative that my good brother and others try to carry out there that black men are going to the other side. 80+% of black men have voted on the right side, protecting their humanity, protecting their pockets, and advancing their communities. Black people cannot put our humanity on the shelf for our pocketbook because they will kill you on the street like a dog, and then you're going to call somebody like me to help get you justice. So the question is, listen to the people who fight for you every day. The good congressman represents a district that's majority white, but he tries to tell black people what to do. Y'all have a good evening.
Ooh, well, and give a round of applause for Congressman Donald
That was
and
funny.
Gary Chambers. I hope. Well, hey, that was his closing thoughts. I hope that you guys make sure. Yeah.
What
Is
that
the
matter?
district majority white? I mean, that is he's asking. Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So
That
what does
matters. So
matter?
he got white people to elect him and came to tell you what to do.
Oh my gosh.
All right,
Okay.
guys.
That talking point doesn't mean a damn thing. We all know that.
Thrilled to introduce you to something I'm incredibly proud of. My own brand of organic specialty coffee, Rudy Coffee. Believe me when I say it's the best coffee you'll ever try. It's smooth, rich, chocolatey, and gentle on your stomach. It's so good, I even recommend drinking it black. It comes in 3 varieties.
How about you do?
Best decaf you'll ever have. You can order now by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting rudy.coffee. By supporting Rudy Coffee, you're not just treating yourself to exceptional coffee, you're also supporting our cause, the cause of truth,
What cause is that?
American democracy, supporting the call to action, not
This is absolutely
helping
hilarious.
veterans.
Hilarious. Rudy Coffee says he recommends drinking it black. I bet you. Pam said, Lord, not a Rudy Coffee. Oh my gosh, these guys, the grift is absolutely real, and the grift is on you guys, the American public. You see Donald Trump selling Bibles and selling watches and selling sneakers and stuff like the grift is real. That is absolutely hilarious. Austin says Rudy's coffees taste better when you're incarcerated. There's a slogan, right, Austin? Tastes better when you're behind bars. It is just yeah, Orangey. Rudy's about to be selling hot dogs in Times Square. Uh and Byron Donalds I mean, how did this guy but you know the most important thing said there. Yeah, other than the qualified immunity stuff, and yeah, you take qualified immunity away, and no doubt about it, you're going to see less brutality, less murders from these police officers because it's going to come. Not only are with the rare cases when they get prosecuted, but they're going to be hit in the pockets, and their pensions and everything will be gone. And police officers, I've met many. The pension is the big thing. It is the be all to end all for them. Take that qualified immunity away, boom. And you have solved a good portion of the problem when it comes to police brutality and police murders. But the most important thing there, aside from that, Gary Chambers brought it home. He gonna come Butter Biscuits Donalds, as what's his name, gonna come and tell black people what to do. Gonna tell black people about minimum wage being good enough. If you heard what he said too, like they're not I think how he phrased it, but almost as if they're not qualified enough to make more than 7.25 an hour. But he gonna tell black people all this, but he represents white people. His district is white. This is a conversation not just with 1, 2, 3, 10 different members of the Congressional Black Caucus, which he's not. But I've had, and others have had, and including the chair, Stephen Horsford, who has said that that is really part of the issue, part of the problem. When we say, well, what are they doing? What are these black folks in Congress doing? Well, part of the problem is many of them have a majority white district that they represent. Many of them have an overwhelming majority white district. So they gotta, in some cases, not all, they gotta dance the jig, they gotta shuck and jive. And they gotta play two ends against the middle, as they say. But that was, I thought, a very important thing that uh, Gary Chambers, among all the things that he hit this idiot on. I'm sounding like Barrington, right? But you just don't like somebody who I don't, who just consistently does what Gary Chambers said. You're putting your pockets ahead of the interests and the lives, not just the material interests, but the lives of black and brown people. And that is really what you're doing. That's what Byron Donalds has done. That's what Tim Scott has done and continues to do. That's what Clarence Thomas has done and continues to do. That's what so many others who look like them have done. Orange says Donald's district is 60% white. It is a heavy leaning conservative district. And there you have it. There you have it. We're going to talk about a few things this morning, including election stress. Of course, you saw Rudy's Coffee, and he's going to have to sell more than coffee to pay his debts. How about Bloomberg and $18 million more in of investment into Morehouse and HBCU medical schools? Great story there. We'll bring you some information on that this morning. But first up, isn't it about time to folks realize that Hollywood and the world of entertainment and fashion has always been full of freak offs and freaks having freak offs? And it's not just Diddy. We see big news yesterday in the mainstream press. Abercrombie and Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries and two others were arrested as part of a criminal. I'm getting some coffee. Mind your business. As part of a criminal investigation into the alleged sex trafficking of more than a dozen victims, according to the FBI and federal prosecutors. Jeffries, his partner Matt Smith, and a third man, Jim Jacobson, are accused of operating an international sex trafficking and prostitution business that recruited young men for parties in the U.S. and abroad. Now, what they were doing is exactly what the federal government alleges that Diddy was doing. They were bringing in these guys, drugging them, paying someone to bring them in, drugging them, and having their way. They would, under the guise that they would be able to be models for Abercrombie and Fitch. They told them this is part of the test. And at first, according to prosecutors, they would tell them, hey, take this pill, take this drug. We want to do a role play. And when some of the guys would say absolutely not, then they would be forced. It would be forced upon them. The prosecutors said that the whole thing was dedicated to fulfilling the sexual desires of these head honchos and ensuring that their international sex trafficking and prostitution business was kept secret. Abercrombie and Fitch did release a statement saying that they were appalled by the allegations, but there are dozens of victims, and the Department of Justice, the FBI, and others are saying that they are actively searching for other victims. So this is entertainment world. This is the fashion world, the music world, all of that. It's we had that whole Me Too, supposedly Me Too reckoning, but it goes so much deeper that folks until now have ignored, it seems. Well, at least law enforcement has ignored. But all the focus on Diddy, but this is going on and it needs to be stopped. It's going on everywhere throughout whatever. This is fashion, which is part of entertainment. And folks, um, it ain't just black entertainers. All of these stuff you hear, it's high time that these folks come to justice. I mean, this what was going on here. uh, he was the head honcho at Abercrombie, and so using that. By the way, and speaking of Hollywood, Greer, you sent me something the other day or yesterday. Shirley Temple Black. Do you have that? Because I think folks, if you haven't seen this, it shows you it goes back so long ago. This is not anything new. This the Harvey Weinstein stuff, this stuff here, it goes way back. And do we have that, Greer? The Shirley Temple Black on Larry King. She was 12 years old. Here we go. I want you guys, if you haven't seen this, check this out.
Producers and directors and all the stories we've heard.
When I left Fox, I went to MGM for one picture. Thank goodness, only one. And when I got there with my mother, we were separated. She went into the office of Louis B. Mayer, and I went into the office of Arthur Freed. And he was going to talk to me about a movie he wanted to put me in. I'm 12 years old, And I thought he was a producer, but instead he was an exhibitor. And I'd never seen anyone naked before, except myself. So I had no clue about what was happening. And so it struck me so funny, I laughed at him. And I laughed uproariously. I had tears, and he got infuriated. And he said, out, 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 go.
Did you tell your mother?
Well, I went down. I was very quiet. I went down and met her in the lobby of the administration building. She came up very quietly from Louis B. Mayer's office. And we walked hand in hand silently to the car, which was unusual. I said, Mom, you won't believe what happened to me. And I told her what happened, and she got kind of quiet. She said, well, you don't know what happened to me. And Louis B. Mayer wasn't as bad as Freed was to me.
He tried
but he came on to my mother. And so we both decided that we didn't like MGM much. It was, it was better at Fox.
Yeah. So this has been going on, folks, forever. And 12 years old. 12 years old she was. And you can imagine, and in this case with the Abercrombie CEO, they were underage individuals as alleged in the indictment, included in the men and boys that are alleged victims here. Hollywood is trash, says Orangey, from touching young kids to making it just about every black man wear a dress. I am done with that trash. And it gives, so we heard Cat Williams, that famous interview, but it can start and makes stuff like this, when you consider it, when you think about it, it starts to make you wonder about that, putting them in dresses. It does. It does. It starts to lend credibility to those conspiracy theorists. So, um, but this has been going on. And meanwhile, speaking of Diddy, a statement has been released by by his children. Let's say five. His six eldest children. He's got what, 8 children, right? But six eldest children: Quincy Brown, Justin, Christian, Chance, and 17-year-olds Jesse and Delilah. Is it 6 kids? 6 kids. Okay. They issued a new statement affirming their steadfast belief in their father's innocence. And they issued a statement through social media. They said, the past month has devastated our family. The statement was posted, not only posted on social media, but accompanied a photo, which also included Diddy's mother, Janice Combs, and youngest daughter, 2-year-old Love Combs. They said many have judged both him and us based on accusations, conspiracy theories, and false narratives that have spiraled into absurdity on social media. We stand united, supporting you every step of the way. We hold on to the truth, knowing it will prevail and nothing will break the strength of our family. We miss you and love you, Dad. Um, the statement from Diddy's children. Um, really, really sad situation for his children. You have to feel for the, all of them, really, but the girls, what they must go through. They have to be certainly shielded from this. And then, of course, there's the little baby. Folks forget that he has a little baby. And this is not to say that you should have any sympathy for him, but certainly you have to understand that there are some uh, innocent ones involved here, and they are standing united, and good for them. I mean, that's look. It comes a time when all you have is family, and they're showing that. They are definitely showing that. A few top officials. Oh,
What's
let's
up,
go to
fam?
this first.
So I just got through voting. Yeah, had a little issue. Um, did my ballot and printed out my ballot, and they had changed who I was voting for president, and it came out with 45's name on it. Hell no! So they fixed that for me, and so I have voted, and I have voted for Kamala and Tim Walz and all you people that are voting for 45. Good luck with you. All right, peace. Hey.
So that's another problem, right? Now, he caught it. Some may not catch it. Some just may not catch it. That he cast his vote, and they put in somehow they put in the wrong information. Look, folks, it's just a fact that they are doing so many things to have the fix in here. It's there's no doubt about it. They've tried to do it legislatively. They have tried to do it. They are trying to do it legislatively. They're trying to do it through the courts. They're trying to fix this thing. They're trying to fix the election. I think that they have somewhere along the line, the MAGA folks have concluded that they can't win fair and square. They can't win. So you see stuff like this happening, and it's obvious. Come on, he's not the only one. A few top officials have spent more time behind closed doors in the White House with Trump than John Kelly, the former Marine general who was his longest serving chief of staff. And with Election Day coming less than 2 weeks away, Kelly says he's deeply bothered by Trump's recent comments about employing the military against his domestic opponents. And he agreed to 3 on the record recorded discussions with the New York Times. And he went into a wide range of topics, including Trump's lack of fitness and his lack of morals, his bad character, And remember, Kelly was Homeland
Do
Security
you,
Secretary
what do
under
you
Trump.
think? Do you think he's a fascist?
Well, I'm looking at the definition of fascism. It's a far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy. So certainly, in my experience, those are the kind of things that he thinks would work better in terms of running America. You know, again, back to this issue of, democracy is complicated, messy to operate, probably the worst kind of government there is, except for all the other ones. I think Churchill once said that. And again, our Constitution, our founders built in to the Constitution and to the way our government operates, built in a lot of checks and balances, and didn't design the government to be streamlined and whatnot. So, but certainly the former president is in the far right area. He's certainly an authoritarian. Admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
And Kelly went on to say that it's a very dangerous thing to have the wrong person elected to high office. And a little bit more on Trump that has been revealed in the last 24 hours. When he was president back in 2020, he went into a rage over the price tag for the funeral of a dead soldier he had pledged to pay for. The soldier was Private Vanessa Guillen, a soldier at Fort Hood who was beaten to death by a fellow soldier and his girlfriend. The girlfriend burned Guillen's body, which was discovered buried near the base 2 months later. Trump invited Guillen's family to the White House and pledged to personally help them with the cost. Well, 5 months later, the U.S. Army concluded there were several leadership failures at Fort Hood, which had been a tough assignment for women soldiers. The report irked Donald Trump, and he was angry by the punishments doled out to the base's leadership. He was angry that they were being punished for their lack of leadership and for allowing their whatever they put forth, the policy, allowing this young soldier to be tortured and killed. So he has the family into the Oval Office and says, I'm going to pay for the funeral. And when he got that update, and then they told him how much, he says, did they bill us for the funeral? What did it cost? And they told him the bill was $60,000, and he became angry. He says, it doesn't take $60,000 to bury a bleeping Mexican. He says, don't pay it. Don't pay that bill. And then they said he carried on this behavior the rest of the day. He was complaining. Can you believe it? These bleeping people. And then folks are going to sit there, Lara Trump and others. Oh, he's not racist. Bleeping Mexican. And then also, here's something else to be concerned about. We talked about everything that's to come if this guy weasels his way back into office. He has publicly named Judge Eileen Cannon to a short list of individuals he's considering appointing as Attorney General if he's reelected. They're not even hiding anymore that the fix on that trial down in Florida. She was the judge appointed to the documents case down in Florida, where he allegedly and illegally took documents, classified documents, shared and sold some of them. And she, from the outset, you had even other Republican judges say, "Oh my gosh, she's a disaster. You can't have her on that case." And every chance she got, she helped him and finally dragged it to the point where she finally dismissed the case against him, playing Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, like a fiddle, which I said long ago that he should have abandoned that case, revisited it later, but went to the January 6th case. And now she is again rewarded, or he's seeking to reward her for subverting justice, for fixing that case, and make her the attorney general. And this is a very hateful individual, folks. If she's attorney general, just saying. And speaking of attorneys and coffee, Rudy Giuliani must hand over his fancy Manhattan apartment, his collectible Mercedes Benz, and a host of other treasures as part of the nearly $150 million judgment he owes to Black women he defamed after the 2020 election. This is according to a federal judge in his ruling yesterday. The list of luxury valuables Giuliani will soon lose also includes items signed by Yankees baseball legends Joe DiMaggio and Reggie Jackson, a diamond ring, and more than 24 watches. Some of those assets are irreplaceable. The 1980 Mercedes was previously owned by actress Lauren Bacall, for instance, and one of the watches belonged to Giuliani's grandfather. Another watch was gifted to Giuliani by the president of France after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks when Giuliani was mayor of New York. He has 7 days to hand over these items and more items. He has to hand them over to a receivership controlled by former Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. Giuliani repeatedly targeted these two women, as we know, with false election fraud claims as part of his efforts to overturn Trump's loss to President Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Freeman and Moss sued Giuliani for defamation, and last December, a federal judge in D.C. ordered Giuliani to pay them more than $148 million in punitive damages and for emotional distress and defamation. Giuliani went on to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy to try and shield himself from sudden financial ruin, but a New York federal bankruptcy judge dismissed his case. And Giuliani has appealed, of course, the verdict in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, where the case is ongoing. But they say he still has to pay up, because right now he's paid none of that $148 million judgment. And he has not obtained a court stay that would have allowed him to delay paying off the debt. So the election workers requested an immediate turnover of Giuliani's assets, including his penthouse apartment in Manhattan's Upper East Side. And boy, oh boy, wouldn't it be nice, even if they don't want to live in New York, wouldn't it be nice if they just spent maybe a weekend in that apartment? Took pictures, said, "This is mine." um, the apartment, by the way, Giuliani tried to sell. He hurriedly tried to sell, and they blocked the sale of it. He put it on the market for $5.7 million. Meanwhile, he has a condominium in Palm Beach, Florida, and a court hearing on October 28th is expected to determine what happens to that condo. And so the judge also allowed the election workers to pursue a debt that Giuliani says he is still owed for his work after the 2020 election. He says Trump owes him about $2 million that Trump or the Republican National Committee has not paid him yet. And so the judge says, well, that money goes to the election workers. He doesn't want to give up his Yankees World Series rings. The team had gifted him 3 World Series rings, and he claims that they were gifts to his son, and so the judge is going to decide that as well. Lauren G says, I have no sympathy for Rudy. Miss Ruby Freeman and Miss Jade Moss have suffered from racist attacks and much more. I hope Rudy loses everything, including the hair dye. Oh, wow, wow, wow. The hair dye. I don't think they want the hair dye, RG. They probably say he could take that to prison with him because he's also indicted criminally as well. So we'll see what happens there. Early voting, folks. Democrats say they see signs of hope with the 2024 presidential election just less than 2 weeks away, as early voting has ramped up across the country. And so far, over 15 million early votes have been cast, either through mail-in ballots or in-person voting. And the breakdown, 46% of those early voters are registered Democrats, 36% are Republicans, and the remaining 18% come from other affiliations. And folks have pointed out just because they're registered Democrats or registered Republicans doesn't mean that they're going to vote that way. For the most part, it seems that they do, but there could be a couple here and there that don't vote along party lines. But it's still, Democrats see reason for hope there. As early voting numbers are particularly important this year because both major campaigns have pushed hard to lock in votes early, especially in key battleground states. And so in Georgia, where Biden narrowly edged out Trump in 2020, nearly 1.7 million early votes have been cast. And it's a tight race. 49% of those voters are Republicans and 46% are Democrats. It indicates that both sides know just how crucial Georgia is this year. And in Wisconsin, another state that played a pivotal role in Biden's victory, over 326,000 people have already voted early. And in Wisconsin, Democrats lead with 40% of the vote compared to just 19% from Republicans. And if you go over to Michigan, another battleground state, Biden's lead in early voting, or Harris's lead in early voting is even clearer, with 54% of the 1 million early votes coming from Democrats and 36% from Republicans. The story is similar in Pennsylvania, a state that Biden won by a slim margin in 2020. Already 921,720 early votes have been cast, and Democrats hold a huge advantage there with 64% of those votes compared to 27% from Republicans. And of course, not forget Nevada, another critical state in the 2020 election. So far, 247,738 early votes have been logged, with 40% of those coming from Democrats, 35% from Republicans, and 25% from those who marked other. They're either independent or other. And again, while the early voting numbers seem to favor Democrats in several key states, the overall election is incredibly close, according to all polls, which show that Vice President Kamala Harris and Trump are locked in a virtual dead heat, each polling at about 47% among registered voters. Among likely voters, the vice president holds a slight edge with 49% compared to Trump's 48%. Political strategist James Carville says the election is going to break in the final days. Whoever wins the swing states will take it all, and it's going to come down to just a few votes. Carville says he has a feeling that Vice President Harris is going to win. And then tell you what, we just saw Ted Cruz there, who is in deep trouble in Texas, fighting a extremely close race with Colin Allred. Some polls have Allred up in that race. And so he's in danger of losing his Senate seat there, which would be really interesting. Really interesting. Power 96 says David Duke is supporting Jill Stein. And early voting in Maryland, according to Michelle Madison, begins tomorrow. She's going to be an election judge. And she says the training was intense. Daniela Pierre says we will be kicking up our election efforts here in Miami-Dade by participating in the National Vote Early Day on Tuesday, October 29th. Good information, folks. Really appreciate you guys writing in with that information, with all the information you put in. And speaking of the election, stress is a big thing. Americans are feeling the pressure. Election anxiety is at an all-time high, and the numbers back it up. According to a new study from the American Psychological Association, the APA, 70% of Americans are deeply concerned about the upcoming election, with many fearing that the results could even lead to violence. This is the highest level of election-related stress we've ever seen in America, and it's a sharp increase from previous years. Back in 2020, about 68% of people reported stress related to the election. And in 2016, that number was only 52%. But this year, the tension is palpable. 77% of Americans say their top worry is about the future of the country itself. 73% are stressed about the economy. The election is its own source of anxiety for 69% of Americans as political divisions deepen and people worry about what could happen if the results are contested or unclear. One of the most alarming statistics from this poll is that 72% of people fear the election could lead to actual violence, and more than half, 56%, believe this election could mark the end of democracy in the United States. Healthcare crime and global tensions are adding to the pressure. 55% of people citing concerns over healthcare, and 54% worried about crime. Mass shootings, misinformation, and housing costs are also major sources of stress, was around 60% of Americans feeling overwhelmed by these issues. And a personal toll that the stress is taking, the poll shows that about 32% of Americans say the political climate has strained their relationship with family members. And 41% have even considered moving to another country because of the political tensions here in the US. Nearly 40% of people are thinking about moving to another state altogether just to get away from the divisive atmosphere. It's amazing, right? Mike V says that President Biden got 46% of the vote in 2020 in Texas. He says Texas is not insurmountable at this point for Democrats. And I believe the vice president is headed to Texas in the next couple of days. In fact, Mike V, I think that they have realized that Texas is very much in play. Power 96 is going to put on a mask. He's going to dress as Byron Donalds and vote on Halloween. He says I will be grilling after he vote. He didn't say he's going to put on a mask though. He says free barbecue for Harris and Walz voters. Trump voters can go somewhere else and eat a cold sandwich. That's discrimination. He's going to give Trump voters. He's sending Trump voters to go get a cold sandwich while he's going to make some hot barbecue for Harrison Walz's folks. Come on now. You got to be more bipartisan. Oh, gosh. And here's some good news, folks. Out of Morehouse School of Medicine, who's leading the charge on another critical issue. When it comes to testing, of course, we know that new medications, vaccines, and medical devices, diversity matters because different racial and ethnic groups can respond to treatments in different ways. And historically, however, clinical trials have been overwhelmingly white, leaving minority groups underrepresented and underserved when it comes to cutting edge medical advancements. But Morehouse, its School of Medicine, is working to change that. They, along with Howard University College of Medicine and Meharry Medical College, is receiving an $18 million investment from Sanofi, one of the world's leading pharmaceutical companies, to boost diversity in clinical trials. The funding is part of a larger effort to ensure that people of color are included in the reach and development of new treatments. The money will be used to upgrade facilities, create customized training programs for researchers, and help meet the requirements for conducting clinical trials that include more diverse populations. The investment builds on a $14 million grant that Morehouse received from Novartis in 2021, which also seeks to improve these clinical trials. In August, Michael Bloomberg's organization announced a $600 million gift to HBCUs, including Morehouse School of Medicine. Of that total, Morehouse received $175 million, which is the largest single donation in the school's history. And so they're trying to turn out more trials and more people of color in these clinical trials, and turn out more professionals of color, more doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals. They want it to be, they want more people of color. He says, Gary Chambers, yes, we have reached out to Gary Chambers, Mike V. And RNG says he is an equal opportunity discriminator. Clarence Thomas gets a hot piece of charcoal. And yes, Mike V, that's what a DE&I initiative is supposed to look like. Exactly. Finally, this morning, Black Americans are more worried than others than when it comes to crime in the U.S. In a survey conducted by crimechannel.org, 72% of Black Americans reported being worried about crime, compared to 68% of white Americans. It's the narrative, right? You see how the narrative, when you actually talk to Black folks, you get to know things about Black folks instead of the stereotypes, instead of the assumptions, presumptions that we see in mainstream media, which will have you believe that only white people are concerned about crime. And the study goes on to show that while the numbers are close, they reflect deeper anxieties within the Black community, where concerns about personal safety and the criminal justice system remain high. Generation Xers seem to have the most fear about crime, with 76% saying they are concerned. And the fear isn't just academic. 80% of Americans overall say crime impacts their daily decisions about where they go and what they do. You know, that's a huge, huge number. It shows just how pervasive these concerns are, regardless of racial or political background. What's also interesting is that this concern over crime is likely to play a big role in the election next month. 70% of voters said that crime will be an important issue when they head to the polls next month. And when it comes to voters being asked which candidate they trust more on crime, well, Vice President Harris has a slight edge over Trump, with 43% of voters say they trust her more to handle crime, compared to 40% who said they trust Trump to handle crime. So the vice president does have the advantage there. And we know too that crime stats in America have long been complex, with Black Americans disproportionately affected. In 2019, for one example, despite making up just 12.2% of the U.S. population, Black Americans accounted for 26.6% of all arrests and 51.2% of all murders, according to FBI data. So Black Americans have been targeted disproportionately when it comes to crime and, of course, racial profiling. And as we talked about earlier, targets of police brutality and, of course, death by law enforcement. Lots and lots of stuff to digest there, folks. Keep checking back with us as we continue to try and bring you news you can use in a way you can use it. Only on Let It Be Known. We try to give it to you just the way it is and take your voices into account because that's what's important. So go to our YouTube page again and hit subscribe and share it with everybody else. Daniela Pierre says public safety and security is indeed on the ballot in Miami-Dade. For the first time in over 50 years, voters will elect a sheriff. There you have it. See, you guys bring the news for us too, and we appreciate that very much. Again, subscribe, LIBK-news at YouTube, and tell other people about us. Share it, share it, share it. The election is coming up, and we're going to bring you some actually, we're going to bring you some good stuff. I'll put it to you that way. We're going to bring you some good stuff leading up to the election and on election day. Orange G says, I shout out Let It Be Known every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on his show, the Orange G Swag Sports. I've been tuning in. This guy is absolutely hilarious. He's absolutely hilarious. You got to check him out on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on YouTube, the Orange G Swag Sports. He had a watch party on the other day, and it was really interesting because I know he was probably sitting back. I don't know what kind of beer he's drinking, but he's got the crawfish going. He got the grill going anyway. I don't know what's on the grill sometimes, but you got to check him out. Check out Michelle's Delicious Delights as well on social media. Subscribe. That would be nice for Michelle. She is extremely, extremely fun to watch as well. So check us all out. Stay black, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.